Hey, this is Trader Travis, and in this video, you will see why I feel that, trading options to build wealth is a much easier approach than trying to trade for a living. Now, this is an older video I recorded a few years back, but I still feel the information you'll learn in this video can benefit you for years to come. Now, if you don't have the fortunate pleasure of being one of the students within our programs, most of the students know they see me, especially the students in our private mentorship group, they see me trade full-time. And so they know that even though I make what most would consider a full-time income trading options, I still don't trade for a living. I trade options to build wealth. And so let me load up that video where I cover I actually unpack this a little more so you can understand what exactly do I mean by trading options to build wealth. So let me load up that video and I hope you enjoy it. I don't trade options for a living. I trade to build wealth, and the approaches to each are very different. One takes years to implement, and the other can be done right away. Trading options to build wealth, it's way easier and less stressful than trying to trade for a living. And another added benefit is that it gives you a higher chance of success. Now, I'll show you what I mean here in a minute, but before I do, I want to say that if you want to trade for a living, then the best approach I know of is to follow the option profit formula. Okay, what you do is you use a source of income to buy or accumulate assets, and then you're going to use those assets to generate an income. And that income is the income you live off of because you control that income. Best case scenario, you shouldn't live off income you don't control. And with this, you own that asset. It's yours. And so you use it to generate wealth or generate money, which is another form of wealth. Money is just a form of wealth. Okay, some option income strategies are selling covered calls. You can do credit spreads. You can do cash secured puts, and there are several other strategies. I think there are like over 100 different option trading strategies available. And in our training, we cover covered calls and credit spreads. And in the covered call training alone, we go over some real trades. You'll see me recording some. And I think that trade had like a 6% return on investment. Another one had maybe a 4%. So you'll see how to use those strategies to generate income. Now, the reason I don't trade for a living is because I discovered an easier approach. And I actually discovered that approach by accident. When I first started out, I tried to trade for a living. I attempted and failed. But along the way, I met a few people who showed me a better way, and I met them at a few seminars. Now, the best way I know to secure your future is to invest in your future. And I chose to invest in my future by going to several $5,000 plus seminars. And this is honestly how I know so much about wealth and investing and how I gain access to so many wealthy people. And it's these same wealthy people who taught me this freedom formula, the option profit formula. And I was broke when I attended most of these seminars. I certainly couldn't afford to go. It's a high price of admission, and I didn't have that. But I got tired of making excuses for my life, so I found a way to afford it. And one of the quotes one of my mentors shared with me is, "Obstacles can be overcome, but excuses cannot." And once I stopped looking at the fact that I didn't have the money, at first it was an excuse, and I changed my mindset and looked at it as an obstacle. Well, I found a way around that obstacle. And I'm glad I did, because I met people who showed me how this freedom formula can be applied to other areas of life, not just with option trading. And here are just a few ways that these others have used this formula for wealth building. There was a girl who, I believe it was her grandma or her aunt had passed away and left her a house that was completely paid for. Now, this young lady sold the house. I think she made about $300,000 cash from selling the house. And then she became the bank, per se. She lent out that money in the form of a mortgage. Back then, interest rates were a little bit higher, so she financed, somebody. Anyway, she gave that money to somebody as a mortgage, and they paid her 10% interest on that money. So each year, she would get about $30,000 profit and interest alone. She spent about 6 months in Fiji, and then another 6 months living, I think, in her sister's house in, I think, the Carolinas somewhere. And so she was younger then, really didn't have any kids, but she used an asset that lump sum of money was her asset, and she used that to generate income. Okay, I wasn't lucky enough, or have not up to date have been lucky enough to have a relative pass away and give me some money, so that didn't work for me. But I met another guy. He sat me down and showed me his 11-year retirement plan. What this guy did was he decided that, okay, He was going to buy one house a year, one investment property a year for 11 years. He was going to put all 15-year mortgages on those homes, and he was going to rent those homes out. Now, just about any person reasonably can scrounge up enough money to buy one investment property a year. You know, even if you bought it no money down and you just found a great deal of foreclosure, there are a number of different ways if you look for them. So anyway, this guy bought one home a year, 15-year mortgages for 11 years. Now, on that 11th year, his first house he had bought now had only 4 years left on the mortgage. It was essentially almost paid off. And he had been renting it out for those 11 years. So what he did, well, there's several different approaches. He showed me all the different approaches you can take. And one of them is you can sell that first house. And that first house has appreciated over those 11 years. And not only that, the mortgage is almost paid off. So you can get a lot of money. And I can't recall all the calculations, but it was like $200,000-$300,000 cash. From that point, as an option trader, you can use that cash to, trade options on. And you still have 10 more homes, okay, that you're using to rent out. And each year, each year, one home, after a few years, each home is going to pay off one by one. But he wasn't an option trader. He was purely a real estate investor. And what he did was he used that cash to pay off like house 2 and 3. So then he had 2 houses paid off and they were all rented out. And so he had rental income. And after that, the home started paying off. And so a few years later, he had several more homes paid off, free and clear, and they were all rented out. Okay. 11-year retirement plan. And he said he liked that plan. He figured that's an easier, doable plan for him compared to working 40, 50 years for a company only for them to fire you right before retirement. Okay. Now that's a plan that mostly everybody can follow. And again, if they stop using excuses and stop saying that's not practical, find a way to make it practical for you. There's another couple I met. Now, of course, as you can see, this freedom formula has been applied to other areas of life, not just options. Okay, I will get to options here in a second. But this couple, my wife is not going to go for this plan, but this couple moved every 2 years. They scrounged and skimped up enough money to be able to afford a mortgage on like $1 million property. And mortgages on $1 million properties can sometimes run $7,000 to $10,000, depending on the mortgage and interest rate. But anyway, so it's a law as of now, currently as I'm recording this video, where if you live in your principal residence for 2 years or more, when you sell it, the money you make when you sell it is yours, tax-free. And so they would buy $1 million property, give or take. Now, 2 years later, that property would have appreciated in value significantly, depending on where they purchase it, sometimes 3 to 6%. So then they would sell that property, take the $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a profit they made, and that was their income. That's what they lived off of. So what they would do, they would move in the exact same neighborhood so their kids wouldn't have to change schools. They would find a home reasonably within the same neighborhood or the same school district and buy it, another $1 million property. They would use that 2, 3. It was different each time, they said, the money. So let's say on average about $300,000. They would then use that cash to pay the mortgage for another 2 years and also live off of it. And that's what they did. That was their income. They just bought. That's another style of flipping homes, but they didn't buy homes, fix them up, and flip them. They bought them, stayed in them 2 years, flipped them on their appreciation. Now, of course, with this recent real estate crisis we had, that wouldn't work as well. But that couple, if they have enough creativity to come up with that kind of plan, I am pretty sure they are doing okay right now. I haven't talked to them, haven't seen them in years, but I'm almost positive they're doing okay. And it doesn't matter if I haven't seen them in years. They left an impression on my life, and I never forgot what they taught me. Another lady, I haven't met her, but I know of her. She makes more money from her rose garden. Well, let me say this. She makes enough money from her rose garden that it makes her social security check look like chump change. All right. And this is a lady who owns virtual real estate virtual real estate. I am not really a tech person. I have a passion for option trading, but I didn't know how to create a website. And so I reached out to some people on the web and said, hey, I kind of want to create a website. This is share my passion, do a brain dump, because a lot of people want me to teach them options, and I can't teach everybody one-to-one. I just want to create a website. Can you help me? And they said, well, let me point you to the company that I use to help me build it. And so they pointed me to this company to help me build a website. And this company has a forum that you can go to where you can ask questions if you need help. Well, in that forum, I saw a post by a lady who has a rose garden site. And let me pull up her site for you. Okay, this is her site right here. It's just a site. What she has is a rose garden at her house, and she takes pictures of her roses and then writes about them. This site, I believe she gets, I don't know, maybe 5,000 to 8,000 people come to it a day. And how she makes money is she sells ad space. Of course, advertisers realize she has so much traffic, they want to advertise on her site. And so advertisers pay her money. I can't put her personal business out there, but let me tell you, she makes a pretty handsome sum from the website. And it blew my mind because I knew traders trade full time. I've been in trading for a while, but I'm new to the whole building websites thing. And what I discovered when I browses a company's forum is that there are literally thousands of people who work from home, retirees who do this, other people, work at home moms. I mean, tons of people who have these passions and they live off of their website. It blew my mind. I mean, I'm so much into trading that it kind of blew my mind. That's their thing. I don't really focus on that. They think what I do is interesting. I think what they do is interesting. But anyway, it crossed my mind. There's so many different ways to build wealth, and there's so many different people who have taken control of their financial future and has not depended on some job to help them. Now, that's just a few of the ways that I have discovered other people have applied this formula to their life. And but most of my focus and most of what I do is on options trading. And so that's where I stick my focus. But the formula, the main point I want you to know is that the formula can be applied to any area of your life, not just options trading. Okay, but here's the takeaway. The model that most of the wealthy people I know they follow is one we chose to follow, and that's to have multiple streams or sources of income. This way your livelihood is not dependent on one source of income. Okay, options trading is just one of those streams, and so during the times when the market is not trending heavily, I'm a trend trader, sometimes the market doesn't trend, like it's not trending right now, and so there might not be as many trades as I can take. I don't get stressed. I don't get impatient. I'm okay because we have a million other activities that keep us busy. I can focus on my small business consulting, or I can continue to work with nonprofits here on their financial education initiatives. I failed miserably at real estate, so I let my wife handle the investing in that area, and I focus on other things. Okay, so that's one area why it's easier for us from a psychological standpoint. We're not depending primarily on our options trading income. But I know your focus right now is on trading options. And let me assure you, online stock option trading has opened the doors for countless people to make a decent income from trading. And the funny part is you may even know some of these people who trade actively, but you wouldn't realize it. You know, I meet them all the time, people who trade full time, but you never know it. And now I want to introduce you to a few people who have opted to trade to build wealth instead of trading for a living. All right. So these are people I've met in my travels. Let me pull up this guy, Danny. All right. Senior VP of a company. Now, I met him at a business conference. Unrelated to trading. I mean, just a business conference. And stupid me, I hadn't closed out my trades for the week, so during the conference when I was supposed to be paying attention, I had my laptop open checking my stock charts, and him and another guy noticed that, and so we struck up a conversation. Come to find out, both of these individuals trade, and they trade pretty actively. But anyway, there was a guy I met. I would have known that. I mean, if I didn't have my stock charts up, I wouldn't have known that. And he does very well at trading and doesn't need to. He's been successful in other areas. Again, I don't want to put his business out there, but let me tell you, the guy doesn't need to trade options. He's done very well in business. And he was at that conference because he was in the process of starting another company. But he trades actively and full time. But he doesn't trade for a living. He trades to build wealth. Okay, here's another guy. This is the other guy I met at the conference, Tom. Tom, his core business is in real estate, but he trades pretty heavily and trades actively. Okay, again, somebody I met at a conference wouldn't have known he's a trader, wouldn't have known he traded full time until we struck up that conversation. Now, when I'm saying trading full time, they mean just like me. They trade on a full time basis. They're always actively in the market, but they don't trade for a living. They trade to build wealth, and I'll make that a huge distinction here in a second. The difference. But let me bring you to two more people. Okay, this guy, he lives in Austin, Texas, and this guy, I met him through that other company too. He just has a website talking about his town. He's passionate about his town, but he trades full time, and that's primarily what he uses to take care of his family. And this young lady, she really helped me out. She was really sweet too, because I'm not so tech savvy. I was new to the whole website thing, and I really needed help and struggled with that. And she was one of those people who reached out and helped me. And come to find out, she's a full-time trader. She's a private investor. She has 2 young daughters. She's a stock trader though. She's not an option trader, but she trades full time. But again, she's not trading for a living. She has a company. You can see here, she's an entrepreneur business consultant. And so she's pretty well known, pretty popular. As you can see, she has 40,000 followers on Twitter. That's just a couple of people. All right. There are more, and they may not be public figures. I may not be able to find them on LinkedIn, but there's a engineer I remember named Dan who, I don't know, probably made about $60,000 to $80,000 a year trading, and he was an engineer. And people were like, "Why don't you quit your job?" Well, because he loved engineering. He loved his job. He saw no reason to quit. He traded options to build wealth. And a lot of people want to trade for a living because they hate their jobs, and that's why I always say, well, get rid of the stress first. I'm not telling everybody to quit their job. That may not be smart or practical, but get rid of the stress first and then still see if you desire to trade for a living. But anyway, he loved his job and made a substantial income trading. There's another guy named Eduardo. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Man, I was on the phone one day and he had made like, I think $40,000 in one trade. I about dropped the phone, and I thought he misspoke until I listened to the replay line. No, this guy had made tons of money on one trade, and he doesn't trade for a living. That's enough. That's more income than some people make in a year. He made it on one trade. Does he trade for a living? Nope. He trades to build wealth. And so here are people you've never heard of, and they make enough money from trading that they could trade full time. They could trade for a living, but they don't. Why? Because they're wealth builders. In my definition of a wealth builder is a person who doesn't rely on one sole source of income. This person believes in multiple streams of income or multiple sources of income. If one income stream temporarily or permanently dries up, they have other streams there to pick up the slack. And besides that, juggling several streams of income, it's more fun than staring at stock charts for 8 hours a day. I'm a trend trader, so that means it doesn't take me long to find and place my trades. This approach allows me to have a little bit more free time than someone who wants to be a day trader or someone who wants to make hundreds of trades a month. That kind of style of trading is not for me. So at a fundamental heart level, I believe in having multiple streams of income. And based on that belief, I would never trade for a living no matter how much I make. Options for us is just a tool used in an overall wealth building plan. And as a matter of fact, we don't even spend my trading income. We live off my wife's corporate income. We eventually want to reverse tithe, and that means where you live off of 10% and you give away 90% of your income. In order to do that, we have to live modestly and invest aggressively. And I thank Mark Victor Hansen and Rick Warren, who introduced me to the concept of reverse tithing. Mark taught his students to buy 2 houses and 1 car instead of buying 2 cars and 1 house. There are people I meet and a couple I know whose car payments, one of their car payments and the gas they fill up that car with, their monthly gas bill and their monthly car payment is more than our mortgage. And they say that taking a class to learn about finances is too expensive. And I say, wow, okay. And this was like a low-cost class like Dave Ramsey. People are struggling. And I say, well, take this class. It really helped us out. They found out it was like $90. And they're like, oh, it's too expensive. And I'm like, really? More expensive than your 1,000-channel cable bill or your going out to eat bill or your mortgage bill. And I'm like, the perspective is entirely different. Now, I'm not attaching a right or wrong to it. It's their money. As long as they can afford the monthly payments, go for it. But here's what Mark and others taught me that consumer debt does to us. It causes us to be preoccupied with why we need more money instead of being preoccupied with ways to make more money. Here's what this couple could have done with that money. They could have done what another couple I know has done. Okay, they're spending, again, their car payment plus the bills, the gas bill on their car is more than our mortgage. The same amount of money they could have bought a rental property, or not even a rental property. Let's say it was a vacation property, and a lot of vacation properties stay empty a lot, right? So they're paying on an empty house for a few months a year. Well, at least on average, that house will go up in value. Cars never go down in value. All right. And then, depending on where they have this vacation or second home, they can sometimes rent it out. And at least that'll cover some of the expenses. But mainly what I want to point out to you is that both couples are spending the same amount of money each month. But they're going to have two entirely different results. One couple is probably going to struggle financially, and another couple later down the road is going to have some sense of financial freedom. Okay. So remember that. Buy 2 houses and 1 car first instead of 2 cars and 1 house. You can't harvest money unless you plant seeds to harvest money. Now, I don't want to make this a rant about getting out of debt. So let me give you a real life example of why we chose not to trade for a living.